Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Publishers Panel, where we bring together a brilliant group of thought leaders from brands and agencies to provide their perspective on the key topic. Today's show is a little bit different as we're going to focus on how advertising and creative technology are continuing to transform the industry. And we're going to address the topic through the lens of a new documentary film called Makeshift that WP Engine produced and is premiering on Ad Age today. And on this link, do I have the link? Makeshift.film/watch Ad Age. Is that available? There it is. I love that. But before you go to that link, think of this as a Q&A about the film and the industry as a whole. I'm Josh Golden, the president and publisher for Ad Age, and for today's Publishers Panel, we're joined by Mary Ellen Dugan, who is the CMO of WP Engine, Glenn Cole, founder and creative chair for 72andSunny, and Fyodor Johannes Torrentier, the chief design officer for Huge. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to you all for joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Fyodor. How did I do on your name? I've been practicing it for hours, so just
you did fine.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are joining via social, let us know where you're watching from, and we'll maybe do a little shout outs a little later. As I'm thinking about the industry as a whole, I am so overwhelmingly aware of the status quo being something that is generally changing constantly, no longer a status quo, the kind of way we're doing it. And I'm thinking about how you're seeing change happen within the industry as sort of a reflection of the documentary, which we're going to speak about today. I'd like to know the change and disruption that you are seeing in your businesses in particular. Fyodor, why don't you begin?
I think in general, like obviously technology and data is starting to play a huge role in the creative industry today. And it's really about creating meaningful relationships between brands and customers. And I think that's the biggest shift. It's actually how do you have that dialogue? And then on top of that, I think specifically moving into the now is so much about the purpose and how you connect with brands around shared values. So it's a lot of shifts and really exciting times to be in the industry.
Yeah, I have to agree. Knowing how much important purpose has been, it seems like the brands that have had purpose already nailed down make it much, much easier. Glenn and Mary Ellen, can you speak to the change that you guys are seeing? Oh, sure. Sorry, Glenn, please.
Sure. Well, I find that in our role with our brand partners, our clients, so much of it when you're a creative agency or a strategic agency is to sort of inspire self-disruption, break patterns to surprise and delight. And now we're in this world where everything is all the disruption is kind of being taken care of for us. So it seems like a real playground creatively, because brands, you can skip that part of the conversation. They already understand from both a practical and economic level why they need to be innovative. And so I find that we're having much more conversations around like the value of a creative idea. And the other changes, everybody is now a digital native. We used to spend a lot of time trying to parse out who are the digital natives in the audience set and who are the non-digital natives. And now everybody, like my parents are now digital natives.
Yeah, they're forced. Mary Ellen, you obviously, as the producer of this documentary, and this I had the chance to watch it again last night. And now everyone can watch it. I'm interested to see the changes that you've seen in your business in particular, and then how you're sort of continually there pushing, obviously, this agenda of transformation.
Sure. Yeah. WP Engine's a WordPress technology company. So we have our digital platform has about 100,000 customers. What's been fascinating to watch over the last really 2 months is that influx of conversation of how do I accelerate my digital footprint? How do I change it? If I summed it up, we work with companies that are small, medium, and large. It's almost like there's a whole new front door for people. If I'm a small restaurant, I have to figure out how to do e-commerce and sell. You're not coming in my front door. Yoga studios, I got to stream training online. Schools, I've got a 15-year-old. One day he's walking in the school. The next day, everything's online. How do you engage your students? How do you test them? What's the back end systems, the front end? And then big brands are saying, all of a sudden, how do I attract? What's that innovation? I attract people. All those concepts around digital transformation, those projects that you had, maybe number 25 is now number 1. The last thing, just this work from home. All of a sudden, companies, how do you engage your employees? What was your intranet or your portal, and what was that digital experience? So I think, as Glenn said, it's really this change of conversation size of every company. I'm not digitally minded. I have to think like a digital business. So that's been the last 60 days. I think agencies now will play the role of help guide us. How do we actually really become a digital business and be innovative? And what's my new front door?
Yeah, interesting. As I was rewatching it again last night, the truth is, the film it sort of celebrates the evolution of, advertising sort of from Mad Men days up to, effectively, as in the film, it's actually now, but really now is now. And this is finished months ago before the coronavirus. And the amount of big ideas that were sort of helped the industry evolve were enormous. And let me actually just do the favor of letting everyone see just a little bit of a tease of the documentary so that they can understand how the wide spans that it covers. Max, would you mind cueing the trailer there so we can take a peek?
It spans the globe like a superhighway. It is called Internet.
That the entire advertising industry was built upon that one little rock that we can buy time from consumers. What happens when they do not let us buy that time?
And advertising, oddly enough, was a huge contributor to figuring out what the internet could be.
Everything was evolving very quickly.
It was all about creating just a unique experience.
It seemed interesting, but not really advertising.
You don't have to define advertising in your traditional sense anymore.
We can either make advertising more annoying or we can make people's lives better.
It's not about tech. It's what technology makes possible.
It's a tool. How can we use technology to uplift people and to help people?
Well, what can we do with virtual reality, AR, mobile, tablets, and how do you convince a brand to go there and innovate that space before anyone else does?
Such great thought leaders that are in the for Alex Gusky talking about subservient chicken, and there's a team that did the first ad in the blockchain with TD Ameritrade. Such terrific insight, and seeing the journey, it kind of made me feel as I was watching it that basically we're in this similar situation right now where everyone's forced to explore and experiment out of necessity, because this is now, it's being foisted upon us, as Glenn, you just suggested. What opportunities do you think are available for us to explore that may not have actually been available prior to now? I'll start with you, Glenn, if that's okay.
Sure. Again, if you started the project, the same project now that you would have started a year ago, and you wanted to have it be technology led or digitally led in any way, one of the first things one of the big hurdles you'd have to get over is like, what's the common language or what's the common platform that we can be on, because we need to do something at scale, unless it's an experiment, which is a different kind of conversation for most of the big brands. And a year ago, you'd have to go through this process of either identifying some of the few platforms that everybody's already on, or figure out how to get all your audience or a chunk of your audience onto a new platform where you want them to be. And you get caught in this kind of struggle, which before you can even get to a creative idea, you're trying to figure out like, where do we play? And now I think that's very democratized. I mean, not everybody's not on every platform, but all the install work has been done. So the playground just looks, to me, way bigger. You can have an idea that can scale in lots more places than just, a YouTube or a web-based app or something. It's right. It's a bigger playground.
Yeah, and Fiona, when I actually think of that, it reminds me of Glenn. You just reminded me of a quote from Igor Stravinsky. I think I'm paraphrasing. It was something like, "Within the greatest limitations comes the most creativity." And right now we're extraordinarily limited. Like even my hand gestures. This is now big, where this is small, and this is like, I don't even know how big that is.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're seeing.
Creativity loves constraint.
With relationship to the exploration that's happening.
I think it's really interesting to think about, like, if you think about it, we have had to rethink how we do things in a really short amount of time. I think we were foreseeing some change maybe 4 or 5 years out of now, and we would potentially behave and do things differently. But now I think we're just starting to collaborate differently with our clients, and we're using different tools, and that kind of bringing those clients so close into the process in some ways both strengthens the relationship, strangely enough, when you're doing it through the computer. But I also think, this collaboration allows us to nail the idea quicker and perhaps, execute it faster. And I think that's maybe the pressure right now. When the briefs were coming in the beginning of COVID, for example, we had to figure out how to do everything differently. How do you shoot right now? How are you going to create content when you're stuck in your living room? And then I think the other layer that has kind of been, I've seen a huge rise in, is just humanity in general. I think we talk a lot about technology, but technology in the sake of driving humanity. And that's the other shift that I see. It's much more about people and connecting people. And I think the ideas are moving more into that territory.
I agree. I think the collaboration, especially between brands right now, I've never seen it in my career. And so 30 years in, and we're all seeing the headlines with Apple and Google collaborating on something that can serve all of us. We just worked at 72 and Sunny with 14 sports brands who got together to honor healthcare workers. We're working with a bunch of food brands who are trying to solve hunger for kids this summer. And nobody says no. Everybody's like, they may not have money at this point, but like, what resources can we bring to the party? Sometimes it's technology resources, sometimes it's networks. That's been the most eye-opening thing. Like Fiora said, is the human. We're talking about technology in this forum, but it is really an unlock of humanity.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's interesting for us. Obviously, we work in an open source. WordPress is an open source CMS and technology, and so that sharing and that ability to do that very common among developers and engineers, et cetera, over years. And so you're starting to see that humanity in all different parts. It's really the bridge, that art and science of how technology is helping us and how is it going to take us forward in the future.
Yeah, Marielle, let me ask you a quick question. I know this film was originally meant to premiere at South by Southwest, and you and Bunch had to sort of change how you're going to message this amazing piece of work out there. What I just want to know, what was the inspiration? Why did you decide to go down this route to connect, WP Engine and the origin of advertising? What was that impetus?
It's a great question. We work with about 4,500 agencies, and we were really curious of how agencies were actually interacting with their clients with this constantly changing digital landscape. Like, how do they use technology? What does that mean to the skill sets they need at the agency, all the creative that they actually produce? How does that happen? So we really thought we needed to interview people and get to some thought leaders. We partnered with a great documentary team, September Club, and our own agency, Hey Let's Go in Boston. And we went out and we actually were able to get about 40 amazing thought leaders, from founders to chief technologists, design officers, of which Fiora and Glenn here are two. And at the end of the day, the film is really shines a spotlight on how agencies have harnessed technology from dial-up to blockchain, how they use that strategically and creatively for their clients. And so we really, really wrestled, given as COVID hit, when's the right time? And we felt like now more than ever is the right time to have this conversation. Each of these two here and all the other agencies are talking to their clients about what is digital and transformation. So even the title, Makeshift, now in hindsight, really worked. It was about that agencies are making and creating and consulting with their clients. So that was really behind the scenes. We wanted to learn from the agencies of how they were using digital and technology.
Yeah, it's smart. I think that it's even more, the documentary has become even more important to register as a sort of a needle drop right now because of the amount of change that's happening. I want to quickly shout out for the audience that's with us. We have an international audience with us today. Let me see if I can get all these names right. Alex from New York City, that's an easy one. Krista from North Carolina, Natasha from Illinois, Makafui from Ghana, Steve from California, Drew from Pennsylvania, and Luca from Italy. Thank you all for joining us today. I wanted to just pivot for a question to talking about creative technology, and specifically how all the work that we're doing is having to adapt, more than frankly we've done ever before, or at least from what I can tell. What role for your agencies, and then also for you, Marielle, if you could speak to it, is creative technology actually helping influence what efforts you're actually executing? I'm curious if you changed your technology platform, your palette to go make what you actually have to still go do from a work perspective. I'll begin with you if that's okay.
Yeah. I think technology is really integrated into the huge, and it's part of our DNA, and it's something we have always done. But I think perhaps how we're applying technology differently right now, it's more about how you actually like drive collaboration. You know, how do you start engaging with different tools.
Are you doing collaboration differently than you've done it before?
Yeah, because we have to do it online. So now we're using Miro, for example, to collaborate as teams, because we do brainstorming and ideation through those tools. And then we use Figma for co-design, and Adobe is doing a lot of interesting things around co-creation. So it's a lot about co-creation and brainstorming and engaging with other team members through new tools and mediums. And that's a huge shift for us. So we're really like speeding up our own processes and probably working faster than ever and being more productive than ever when we're actually, sitting at home.
Isn't it funny? I had an allergy to working from home beforehand, but now I'm like, I think it's okay. Glenn, tell me, I know that you spoke to in detail in the documentary the amount of creative technology shift, but I mean, I'm only imagining it's become more evident for 72 and Sunny.
It is. There's a wide spectrum right now, because we're not adding new capability. We're not adding new functions to our team, but we are. I find myself in more conversations with the digital teams or the platform teams with our clients, not just the marketing teams, because some of our ideas have to start with their product and how consumers are experiencing their brand through their digital platforms right now. So our creative energy goes there, and it becomes a little bit more like we're the designer of the car and they're the engineers of the car, and between us we're building some of those digital cars together. But if I'm really honest, I think we're spending more energy figuring out how to hack the existing technology that's out there, which seems to be the prevailing consumer behavior, from the 10-year my 10-year-old daughter on TikTok to
she try to hack TikTok. That's awesome.
I think that has really inspired like a lot of hacking and a scrappy creative behavior. That's
right. And Mary Ellen, I know that you have a big, obviously this is a large entity you're sitting within as a brand. Are you seeing this as well? This kind of shift happening?
Yeah, I think I'll take it from a slightly different angle as a chief marketing person. So, here, one of the things is we had an event that we had planned in Austin in June. We had to turn that into an entire virtual experience, essentially overnight. And so, the change that there's lots of technologies, it'll be on our platform, but we have to use lots of different ways. We also are using Miro, as Fiora said, across our marketers and our developers and our creative teams. So I think you're seeing people, both from the marketing side, selfishly, we have to adapt quickly. All marketers do, and all of your clients and brands from the agency, and utilize. And I think what Glenn said is really on point. It really is that melding of the R&D organization, the technology organization, and the marketing to come together. And I think that's what you're going to see even more. Those teams, almost one team. I think my title is going to go away. I'm going to become the Chief Digital Experience Officer or something else. But that really that's what you're seeing, and that expertise. And that's when we turn to our agencies and we see our agencies advising others on that technology and how they do it, the front and the back end.
One of the major insights that came from the documentary for me was the kind of the ownership shifting from, brands really driving the conversation to really through the sort of the growth of social media to consumers sort of driving how they will receive that information. I wonder if now the situation has changed even more dramatically so that the consumers have, while there's less control that they'll have the ability to exert, but more potentially that they can choose what they want to engage with. Maybe, Glenn, will you speak to this just a little bit? Because I know you hit on it in the documentary. It was very interesting for me.
Well, I think the influence of the audience is rising, because their square is the same size as the square of the brands that they are advocating for or are punishing. And their voice is just as loud. So, and in some ways, they're being more creative with their own personal brands than those other brands. So, I find our our clients are in much more of a listening mode and collaborating with those consumers mode. And some of our brands are, based on physical experiences, whether it's retail or sports, they're going to have to change that relationship they've had with their customers, which has been physical for so long, to being largely virtual, even beyond, a vaccine. So the pivot of going from being like, we are providing something of value to you, is become more of a conversation and more of a listening exercise on their part, so they're becoming like learners, which is really exciting, I think.
Isn't it interesting how we're all, not that I had this down at all, but knowing how much we've changed, even at age, we've done, now look, we're in a virtualized panel. This is, a meta example. Never were we considering this before, but now we've done 8 of these, great opportunities for visibility, for content that's frankly pretty, awesome. And it's inspiring to see how quickly a brand can move. Even a 90-year-old brand like Ad Age can change overnight. Fiona, have you seen, what things are you seeing from the consumer perspective that's driving, how to communicate better?
I think just the consumer in general is putting more pressure on brands in general. They want brands to do more. They want brands to have a point of view. They want them to have a positive impact on the world. So like Glenn said, the pressure is coming from the consumers themselves. And they are really, I think that's the pressure that the brands are feeling. And if they can't meet those expectations or shift their brands into, behaving differently and taking different actions, I think they're going to start losing their audiences. And I think that's a very interesting tension to watch. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm really interested in is like, how are we going to be able to help brands, bring those meaningful relationships and reshift how they position themselves to be able to make the connections they need to connect to be relevant in the future.
Yeah. Let me just quickly reintroduce everyone who's on the panel. Today, I'm Josh Golden. I'm the president and publisher at Ad Age. And on the publishers panel today, we're talking about Makeshift, the new documentary from WP Engine. We have with us today Mary Ellen Dugan, who is the CMO of WP Engine, Fiora Johannesdottir, who is the Chief Design Officer for Huge, and Glenn Cole, the founder and creative chair for 72 and Sunny. I'd like to ask, if I could, there's so many changes that we've seen happen. Oh, I'm sorry. I should highlight the documentary where everyone can watch it. Makeshift.film/watch-ad-age. That's hard to say that. But you can type that in and check out the documentary, which we're talking about right down below there. But as we're sort of watching the quantity of things that have been shifting so dramatically, I've been asking, because I'm curious, what things are you hopeful to continue? What would you love to retain from this time where we've all been working from home? And what thing would you be willing to just release? And like, I don't need that anymore. I'm curious. Mary Ellen, I'll begin with you.
Oh, I knew you'd come.
Sorry. Glenn, you.
I'll give it a shot. You know what? I am excited the working from home is great, but then the other experience of going out and socializing, I will be excited when socializing is not just on Zoom. So I think I'm going to look forward to that. But then I would say it's kind of a edge of two coins there. I feel like I have connected with friends and family more during this time because you felt this need to do it. And we did that digitally. So that digital and human experience has really come together. And I'm anxious to see. I think that's going to continue as we go forward. So, tale of two sides.
Got it. Glenn.
Well, I think the thing to keep, God, I hope so badly, and I think we'll keep it, is this scrappiness that all the creative companies have right now, that our clients have. If you look at the NFL draft, like the NFL one is monolithic brands in the country. They held their draft. It looked from the basement of the commission, from the commissioner's basement, streaming fans. It's their version of Scrappy, and it was super innovative, highest ratings they ever had. So they're being rewarded for being scrappy. So I think this has got us back to like reminding you what's essential and how and reminding you to be innovative. Right now there's an external constraint forcing that. I hope it becomes an internal constraint that makes us all I hope there's some muscle memory that sticks. what I could do without, I share Mary Ellen's point of view on the Zooms. It's as much as I appreciate the focus of them, I miss the serendipity and spontaneity of just passing somebody in the hallway or something that
an idea.
An idea.
Yeah, that's right. And Fiora, what do you keep? What would you keep? What would you kill?
Oh my God. I think what I really want to keep is the pressure of changing, changing for the better. You know, it's like, it feels like this COVID event put like a fire under everybody. And I just hope that we're going to continue to drive change as fast and as we've been able to do for the past 2 months. And I really, the global connection, I think even corporations are more globally connected than ever before. When the office walls disappear, people just connect more, both within their employee groups, but then with friends and family. I agree with that. I agree, Skype, like 9 hours a day, it's draining. So
it's a lot.
If anyone
you have 30-minute increments.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
30 minutes.
30 or 60, there's no bathroom, there's nothing else.
Nothing.
What happened to the good old phone call? Just call me. It's okay.
You do both. It's not one or the other. We're going to be doing one of these together.
So true. I want to thank you all for joining me on the Publishers Panel. This was just terrific. I want to highlight the documentary again. The link is available at makeshift.film. I'm just going to go there because it's too hard to say the dashes in between ad and age. I want to thank my panelists, Fiora and Mary Ellen, and of course, Glenn, all of you for both being in making the documentary, Mary Ellen, and for being in it. It was just great. And I want to thank our audience, of course, for tuning in. It was just a great conversation. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank
you all, guys.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for hosting us.
Of course. Take care.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Bye.